How's it growing, folks? Welcome to another special video podcast episode. My special guest today is Mo Asnani. Mo, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you, Eddie?
I'm doing well. For the crowd that might not know, especially my out of Arizona listeners, tell them what you do, Mo. Tell them about your dispensaries.
So here in Tucson, we have the downtown and D2 dispensaries. We also have a brand called iLava, along with a group of other brands, Roaring Twenties, what have you. We started with 3 employees in 2013, and today we have over 220 here in Tucson. So we're growing organically, and it's just me and my business partner. So it's been a great journey.
That is really cool. And for those that don't know, D2 is the largest dispensary in the state of Arizona and sports a double lane indoor drive through. So if you can get down there and check that out.
Thank you for the shout out.
Definitely. I'm very it's definitely the coolest dispensary I've been to in Arizona. So wanted
Appreciate
to
that.
get that in there. But we're focusing our talk today about the change in Twitter ad policy. And I did a podcast earlier this week where I talked with Clark Wu of Bianchi and Brandt, a law firm up there in Phoenix, and he explained why he thought maybe Twitter is the first to move into this space. But Mo, talk to me a little bit about what the rules were for cannabis on social media before this sea change, and talk to me about what Twitter has changed.
I think that you have seen a landscape, that has been primarily content driven with social media, mostly Meta, right?
Mhm.
Facebook and Instagram, who were the go-tos for cannabis content. What happened with us early on is we started to build followings, for our dispensaries and our brands on Instagram, and then one day, boom, it's gone, because your account got suspended for whatever reason. And sometimes you could have competitors going and reporting, oh, there's cannabis content. I'm sure that still happens. And then, pages would spend years building up 20,000, 30,000 followers. Luckily, we never built up that many before getting kicked off. But I always looked at social media as being the wrong solution for cannabis because of the fact that you could get blown out in a day and lose years worth of content and work. Um, when Twitter formalized the process under the Elon Musk ownership, for saying, okay, we're now going to treat you as equals. I've never asked for too much, right, in the cannabis industry. I simply asked to be treated equally as everybody else. And I think that's a simple ask that our industry should constantly be doing. And Twitter listened. They said, okay, we're going to treat you just like we treat everybody else. I mean, they even did matching dollars, for I think a lot of the folks who advertised last month or in March. And that kind of tells you that it's going to move in that direction with the others because Twitter went to verified badges, and now you're hearing Meta is going to go to verified badges. Twitter's taking on cannabis. I'm not holding my breath for when Meta does it, but they eventually will. And I think in the way of being the pioneer under the new ownership and having a better understanding, not being a publicly traded company too, I think that made a big difference, right? Because Twitter was before on the NASDAQ, or I believe it was the NASDAQ, not the NYSE, but now since it's private, you don't have SEC filings, you don't have as many regulatory financial agencies involved, and you're just a private company, it makes sense for them to be the first ones to innovate in
Mm.
this space.
Do you think it has anything to do with Elon Musk's takeover? I know you mentioned that a little earlier in that last answer there. Do you think if this is the old Twitter kind of, let's say they took it private, but this is the old Twitter that we're talking about, would they make a move like this, or did it take Elon kind of moving into this space?
So again, when I think about Elon Musk, I remember I think when I became a big fan of the individual is when I saw him on Rogan smoking a joint. I think he had tobacco mixed in. I don't remember exactly what he was smoking, but there was definitely cannabis. And I have a portrait of that in my hallway here. Well before he bought Twitter. And I think the openness, right? Cannabis is not some horrible, dangerous substance. The normalization. I mean, last night I was at an event where we actually had a police chief saying that they're trying to recruit more people, who use cannabis. And as long as they're not doing it at work, he looks at it the same as alcohol. Yeah, that's here in Tucson.
That's a
I'm
huge sea change. That is a sea
yeah,
change. Yeah.
so as the world is changing around us, companies have to say, you know what we were doing in 2012 or 2015, things have changed. We're in 2023 and times have changed. The psyche around cannabis has changed and we have to acknowledge that. And they're being pioneers in doing it. So I have a great respect for Elon for being the first one to do it.
So I have a Twitter account. I've got accounts on pretty much all of the social media sites. And since this change on Twitter, I've seen some MSOs advertising some True Leaves, the Harvest, the Cura Leaves, but yours is the first Tucson brand that I've seen pop up, and I've seen both ads for D2 and downtown. Talk to me about this initial push and what you guys are kind of looking for. What's this kind of return on investment that you're hoping for from this kind of this marketing?
When I zoom out and look at the bigger picture on social media, right? And again, this is my opinion. I don't necessarily want, I think that you have some social media who's actually deflating. I think that Facebook usage is going down. I think Instagram's relatively stable. I don't know if it's dropping off, but I think Twitter's growing. And it's becoming an alternative news site, right? It's at the end of the day, read the old days of reading long newspapers or watching 45 minutes of TV for local news. That's a small percentage of the population. Is getting smaller. Most people live on their phones. And Twitter is something where you have transparency on views on tweets, so you know what people are looking at, that they're spending time there. Because of the fact that they're not only gathering data points, but are being transparent with those data points to the public and their advertisers, it gives you a lot more comfort in that advertising. Because I'll tell you, if I buy a newspaper ad or I put up a billboard, what do I know what my metrics are? No idea, right? You're really throwing stuff at the wall, and that's how most traditional advertising is. And when you go digital, we still can't advertise on Google. We can't do Google AdWords. We can't do, Facebook sponsored, Meta sponsored. A lot of those doors are still closed. So here you have something where you can actually get real data analytics and ROI. And to answer your question, I mean, it's one of the first to actually give us that. So that's why I'm interested, because you don't get that with most advertising you do. Even with the folks at Leafly and Weed Maps, and I'll be honest, they should be worried, because when you're spending the kind of money on digital, and now, like, let's say if you're a dispensary or an MSO, whatever, right? Small, big, doesn't matter. But you have some budget going to Leafly, to Weed Maps, and then to Twitter. What if one's giving you really good data and ROI and views and showing you how your money is being spent? The other two are like, well, you've been doing this for 5 years. Why would you do anything else? That's kind of from a business perspective, what we're all looking at. We will want better analytics, better ROI on everything we're doing,
We touched
especially if economic compression's happening too. I mean, you're seeing that in the greater landscape outside of cannabis, just in the economy,
mm.
inflationary stuff. So yeah.
I said like you're really the first in Tucson I've seen pop up on Twitter. Have you heard behind the scenes, are other dispensary chains within Tucson, within Phoenix, are they also looking at this? Have you heard of anybody else jumping into this as well?
Just like you, the only two other Twitter ads I've seen are, the MSOs. And my background, right? I'm an MIS major from Eller. And I actually love the fact that we can finally incorporate some technology into our advertising. But no, I've not had those conversations with others. And we did want to be the first local ones and not necessarily scream it from the rooftops, but see us on Twitter when we get there. We had to get certified. We had to provide licensing documentation. We had to, show that we were real with everything we were doing before we were able to get those ads going. And that was a bit of a process, but it's fine.
I was just going to ask that. How long was that process to make sure, like, hey, this is actually D2 downtown and not just me with like a Twitter account trying to do this?
It took about 10 days,
Yeah.
10 to 12 days, if I'm correct. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Um, Obviously this is hopefully just the beginning of the online real estate kind of giving in to this sort of marketing and advertising. Where do you see this growing in the next 2 to 3 years here? Do you see Meta breaking its doors down? Do you see Google, finally jumping on board with this, or is this going to be a slow process like everything else in this industry?
Oh, no, I think tech FOMO is a very real thing, fear of missing out.
Mhm.
And I think, as soon as this is proven a little bit more that more folks are getting on board. Because one concern, right, if you're Meta, that maybe the management or executive teams at Meta have are okay, fine, Elon's opened it up. Who's actually going to get on board? And I think there's part of a duty we have, being in the cannabis industry to say, yeah, let's jump on board. Maybe don't throw your whole advertising budget at it if you don't want to, but at least we're showing that we're real. We're gonna take that mind space, and then it incentivizes people like Meta to open up their doors, or Google to open up their doors. And Apple has already done it in some ways, because you're now seeing App Store, installs where you can go and actually purchase things in app, which weren't the case before. So I think that it's really pioneer move.
What kind of like I guess word of mouth have you heard about this? Obviously, I'm interviewing you for this. Are you getting people in through the door that are like, hey, I saw you on Twitter, and maybe it's not like the reason be all that they're there, but just that they saw it. Are people bringing that up and mentioning that to bud tenders and to you out there?
I've had family members text me screenshots of the Twitter ads that they're seeing, in terms of we've only been doing this for a few days, Eddie,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah,
why I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, I think we will. And of course, we like to track that better as we add conversion pixels and things in. Right now, we're just like, let's make sure, because we do have that beautiful store at D2. So highlighting the interior and, the experiential areas of that place, that was great for us because now we can show it in a place where there's a lot of eyeballs. And like one thing Elon said really stuck out in my head when he was talking about advertising on Twitter. He said, if it's really good content, it shouldn't feel like an ad.
Mhm.
And that's where what we're going for, right? Our ethos is I don't want to be in your face showing you something you don't want to see. But if we built a really nice store and we're showing you what that looks like, and it's I think one of a kind in some ways, then we want to be able to do it the right way. And if Twitter's a venue for that, then so be it.
Awesome. Awesome. Mo Asnani, thank you for joining me today on the Here We Go video podcast. I really appreciate it. And I'll definitely check in with you in a few months to see how this is working out.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you again for joining me, man.
Thank you.
Have a good one.